The vast hall of the Galactic Council on Aethos Prime was a testament to the unity and power of the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Towering pillars carved from iridescent stone framed the grand chamber, where representatives of over 100 species sat in tiered rows, their eyes fixed on the central podium. Council Leader Xytrion, a venerable member of the Graphic species, stood tall before the assembly, his expression grim. He had seen many conflicts in his centuries of service, but none like the one looming now. The time for diplomacy has passed, Xytrion's voice echoed through the chamber, the translator devices seamlessly converting his deep, guttural tones into 100 languages. The Terran Empire's expansion into the Outer Rim systems cannot go unanswered. We, the Galactic Council, must act. There were murmurs of agreement from across the room. The humans had been a minor species not long ago, barely advanced enough to join the Council, let alone challenge its authority. But in the span of a few short centuries, they had risen from the ashes of their own internal wars to build an empire that now rivaled the might of the Council itself. Their expansion was swift, aggressive, and unstoppable. Worlds once ruled by ancient alien races had fallen to the Terran Armada, and now, the Council faced a stark choice: demand their withdrawal or prepare for war. We issue this final ultimatum, Xytrion continued. The Terran Empire must withdraw from the Outer Rim territories within 30 standard cycles, or they will face the combined might of the Council's military forces. As Xytrion's words hung in the air, the Council delegates exchanged uneasy glances. None doubted the power of the Council's armada, but they had all heard the stories, rumors of human ingenuity, their ability to adapt and thrive in impossible situations. The humans were nothing like the Council's previous enemies. On Earth, Emperor Alexander Drake stood before the massive window in his private office, gazing out at the glittering sprawl of the Terran capital, Nova Prime. The Galactic Council's ultimatum had arrived just hours ago, and now it was up to him to respond. Drake was a man of quiet intensity, his sharp blue eyes betraying none of the thoughts racing through his mind. Behind him, a group of his top advisors stood in tense silence, awaiting his decision. At the head of the group was Admiral Sara Velasquez, the commander of the Terran Armada, a woman known as much for her tactical brilliance as for her fierce loyalty to the Empire. "They expect us to back down," Velasquez said, breaking the silence. "But they underestimate us." Drake turned slowly to face his advisors, his expression calm. "They've always underestimated us," he said. "But that's their mistake." He walked over to the central console and activated the holodisplay, which showed the Galactic Council's ultimatum. Without hesitation, he pressed the button to transmit his response. "We will not withdraw," Drake declared. "Prepare for war." This chapter introduces the core conflict and sets the stage for the coming war between the Galactic Council and the Terran Empire, establishing both the Council's fear and the defiance of humanity. The vast emptiness of space around the Outer Rim was suddenly disrupted by the arrival of a massive Galactic Council fleet. Ships of all shapes and sizes, each representing a different alien species, formed an impenetrable wall of metal and energy. At the helm of the flagship Aethos, High Commander Tathran of the Drekva species watched the unfolding operation. His orders were clear: show the Terran Empire the full strength of the Council's might and force their immediate withdrawal. Tathran's eyes narrowed as the final ships took position. "Do not underestimate these humans," he growled to his officers. "They fight like cornered beasts, dangerous and unpredictable." Reports had flooded in over the last cycle, detailing humanity's surprise attack on the Council supply lines. Small, agile Terran ships had struck with deadly precision, vanishing into the darkness of space before the Council's lumbering cruisers could react. The humans didn't fight like any other species, they fought to win, using tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. Before Tathran could contemplate further, a proximity alert blared through the ship. The holographic display in front of him flickered to life, showing a new set of signatures on the edge of the system. The Terran Armada had arrived. On the bridge of the Valkyrie, Admiral Sara Velasquez observed the enemy fleet. They outnumbered the Terrans 3-1, a fact she had already anticipated. Numbers didn't concern her. She knew the Council relied on strength in size, deploying overwhelming forces to crush their enemies through sheer firepower. But they hadn't fought humans in a full-scale war. Not yet. Deploy the drones, Velasquez ordered calmly. Dozens of AI-driven drone ships launched from the Terran fleet, each one no larger than a fighter craft but equipped with advanced cloaking technology and AI coordination that allowed them to swarm like a hive mind. Invisible to the Council's scanners, they sped towards the heart of the alien fleet. Within moments, chaos erupted. Explosions rippled through the outer ranks of the Council ships as the drones attacked from within, targeting weak points with surgical precision. The drones weaved through the Council's formations, cutting through shields and hulls before the larger ships could even return fire. On the Aethos, Xytrion watched in disbelief. His fleet's superior numbers had crumbled in minutes. The humans hadn't engaged them in a direct fight, instead, they struck from the shadows, unraveling the Council's rigid formations. Pull back. Regroup. Xytrion barked, but it was too late. Another wave of Terran ships emerged from hyperspace, this time led by Velasquez herself. The Valkyrie fired a volley of high-powered plasma torpedoes, further crippling the Council fleet. Velasquez smiled grimly as the Council ships began to retreat. The battle was over before it had truly begun. Send them a message, Velasquez said. Let them know this is just the beginning. As the surviving Council ships limped away, the Terran Armada remained in formation, ready for the next move. Humanity had struck the first blow, and there would be no turning back. In this chapter, the first battle between the Galactic Council and the Terran Empire unfolds, showcasing humanity's unconventional tactics and setting the tone for the larger conflict to come. Emperor Alexander Drake stood at the head of the War Council, his gaze steady as he surveyed the room. The faces staring back at him were a mixture of concern and determination. They all knew the stakes. The Terran Empire had dealt the Galactic Council a heavy blow, but the real war was just beginning. The Council's fleet was regrouping, and humanity was still vastly outnumbered. We can't hold the Outer Rim indefinitely, Admiral Sara Velasquez stated bluntly, breaking the silence. They'll throw everything they have at us next time. We might win a few battles, but not a prolonged war. Drake nodded. She was right. The Council had the resources of dozens of star systems, while humanity had only its empire and the ingenuity that had gotten them this far. Fighting defensively would eventually wear them down. Our advantage lies not in numbers but in strategy, Drake said. We need to take the fight to them. If we strike at their heart, we can force them to negotiate on our terms. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the Council. The idea of launching an offensive attack on the Galactic Council's homeworld, Aethos Prime, was audacious, borderline reckless. It was the nerve center of the Council, heavily fortified and considered impregnable. Yet that's exactly why it was the right target. The Council would never expect humanity to be so bold. Are you proposing an invasion of Aethos Prime? General Ivan Makarov asked, leaning forward. The skepticism was clear in his voice, but there was a spark of interest in his eyes. No, Drake replied. Not an invasion. A precision strike. We don't need to occupy their capital, we just need to destabilize them. If we cripple their command infrastructure, the Council will fall into chaos. Their fleets won't be able to coordinate, and the war will be too costly for them to continue. Dr. Elena Forsyth, the chief scientist of the Terran Research Corps, stepped forward. That's where the Revenant comes in, she said, her voice confident. It's equipped with the latest cloaking and nanomachine technologies. It can bypass their defenses and reach the planet undetected. The room fell silent as a holographic projection of the Revenant, the Terran Empire's most advanced warship, appeared above the table. It was sleek, dark, and unlike anything the Council had ever faced. a true weapon of stealth and precision. We send the Revenant and a small strike team, Velasquez said, her eyes locked on Drake's. Hit them hard, hit them fast. We disable their communication networks and get out before they can respond. Drake met her gaze, then turned to the others. It's a gamble, he admitted. But if we succeed, we can end this war before it truly begins. If we fail, humanity's survival is at risk. The room was tense, but one by one, heads nodded in agreement. There was no room for hesitation now. Humanity would not stand idly by, waiting to be overwhelmed. We strike, Drake ordered. Prepare the Revenant. The Council won't know what hit them. In this chapter, Emperor Drake and his War Council devise a high-risk strategy to strike at the heart of the Galactic Council. The tension builds as they decide to take a gamble that could either secure victory or doom humanity. The stars over Aethos Prime flickered as the Terran Empire's strike force emerged from hyperspace. The Revenant led the fleet, its sleek, cloaked frame slipping undetected through the Galactic Council's formidable planetary defenses. Admiral Sara Velasquez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Valkyrie, watching as her fleet moved into position. This was humanity's gamble: strike at the heart of the Council, destabilize their leadership, and force an end to the war. Remember the mission, Velasquez said to her crew, her voice calm but commanding. We're not here for a prolonged battle. We strike, disable their command network, and get out. Meanwhile, deep within the Revenant, Captain Marcus Kane led a small team of Terran Special Forces. Their mission was simple but dangerous: infiltrate the Council's central communications hub on Aethos Prime and plant the disruption devices that would sever the Council's ability to coordinate their fleets. Without communications, the Council's vast armada would be paralyzed. The team descended through the atmosphere in a stealth drop pod, bypassing the planet's detection systems thanks to the Revenant's advanced cloaking technology. As they landed in a remote sector of the city, Kane glanced at his team, veterans all, hardened by years of fighting. They knew the risks, but there was no turning back now. Move out, Kane ordered. His team advanced through the dark, towering streets of Aethos Prime, moving swiftly and silently toward their target. Back in orbit, Velasquez and her fleet initiated their diversion. The Valkyrie and its sister ships unleashed a barrage of plasma torpedoes on the Council's orbital defenses. Explosions lit up the sky as stations and ships were torn apart. The Council responded immediately, launching hundreds of fighters and warships to engage the Terran fleet. They're biting, Velasquez muttered. Good. On the ground, Kane's team reached the communications hub, a towering spire of alien technology that stretched into the sky. Guards patrolled the perimeter, but the Terrans were efficient, taking them down without raising the alarm. Inside, they moved swiftly, planting the disruption devices on the central control systems. As the last device was activated, Kane glanced at his team. Time to go. But just as they turned to leave, alarms blared. The Council forces had detected them. Within moments, alien soldiers poured into the room. A firefight erupted, with Kane and his team fighting desperately to hold the line. Fall back. Kane shouted, covering his team's retreat. One by one, his soldiers made their way to the extraction point, but not without losses. Kane himself was the last to leave, injured but determined. In orbit, Velasquez watched as the Council's forces began to falter. The disruption devices worked perfectly, cutting off the Council's ability to communicate with their fleets. Chaos erupted in their ranks, with ships drifting aimlessly, unable to coordinate. They're falling apart, Velasquez said, a grim satisfaction in her voice. Send the retreat signal. We've done enough. As the Terran fleet slipped back into hyperspace, leaving behind a disorganized Council, the war was effectively over. Humanity had won, not through brute force, but through strategy and audacity. On Earth, Emperor Drake stood in silence, watching the stars. The war had come at a great cost, but but humanity had secured its place in the galaxy. They had shown the Council, and all other species, that they would not be underestimated. In this chapter, the climactic final battle unfolds with the Terran Empire successfully executing their bold plan to disable the Council's communications. The infiltration team faces danger on the ground while the fleet engages in a diversionary attack, leading to the eventual collapse of the Council's military coordination and securing humanity's victory.